Thank you, everyone, for joining us for another edition of the Wrestling Underground podcast. I'm your host, Chad. He's Marcus, the glorious one. We are here to talk to you today about a fun dual list. It's our 12 picks. Six names we think have worn out their welcome in wrestling for good, and six names that we think can be rejuvenated by jumping to TNA. Now, originally it was going to be just Cedric Alexander's influenced list, the names that we think could be rejuvenated or rehabbed in TNA. You know, TNA has a history of doing this. Look at EC3, huge name. Mickey James started off in TNA. Who else? Gail Kim, Christian Cage. Frankie Kazarian left TNA, stumbled a bit in WWE, came back to TNA, so he kind of counts. There's a whole list of guys and gals who benefited from jumping to TNA and basically showcasing what they can do without the constructs and constraints that the WWE provides. And with Alexander now in TNA doing this feud of sorts with Mustafa Ali, who knows? Maybe he'll get that rub as well. But we'll see. These are six names that we think can be rejuvenated. But we were also thinking, hey, you know what would be fun? Goldberg's coming back, so why not do a Goldberg centric list as well? Six names that no longer get the pop they used to. So on tonight's show, we're doing the six names that don't get the pops that they used to, and frankly could be better off not being used anymore in any capacity, and six names that we think could find new life from the WWE to TNA without having to do anything of the sort, like working for the WWE anymore. So with that being said, Marcus, are you ready to get into this?
Let's do it, bro.
So first one up, we're gonna go with the negative side of things. I want to be very clear. This is only because it's obvious. That's the only reason he's number six right now. It's not because we think there are worse people than him. It's not because we think there are people who've done worse things for him, or anyone who can come out and be seen as not as problematic. No, no. Like he is all those things. He's problematic. He's terrible. He's awful. But we all know that. So it's for that reason. He no longer has the pop that he used to have. He doesn't have the fan appreciation he used to have. Number six has got, or number six for the bad side of this list has got to be Hulk Hogan. For the last 10 years, this man has gone down a shit spiral of sorts and has lost whatever goodwill, whatever appreciation he had in the wrestling community, and he's pulverized it. He's destroyed all of it, through his behavior, his antics, his lies. And I got to admit, I think a lot of it still, kind of stems off of the way he left TNA. He didn't exactly leave with a lot of great taste in people's mouths. So I'm not entirely surprised that we got him at number six. Marcus, what did you think about seeing Hogan on this list at number six?
A couple names on this list kind of felt like no brainers, and his instantly came to mind. I mean, he's the very definition of clearly not the guy they used to be or get the pops that they used to get. We saw it in real time, and it was one of the best things that happened. What last year? Uh, in wrestling that I saw. I think the craziest thing is I think a lot of people in the business knew that Hogan was a big piece of garbage. I think because obviously fans come at it from a different emotional standpoint perspective, it just took them longer to catch up to that, and for a lot of them, they had to be hit over the head with racist rhetoric. But you know, like I said, it felt like a no-brainer in every sense of the word, from every corner of definition of trash. Hogan meets all the criteria.
It was hard to watch his downfall in real time. I thought he could really help TNA. And when the whole racist comments came out, like I wanted to believe that he was just in a bad place, right? That's not the case. It's really not. The funniest part about all this is like the dude took a photo with a guy with swastikas on him, and he didn't seem to have any problem with that. So when you see that, yeah, yeah, he's a piece of shit. I hope nothing but bad things for him. Number five on the, or I should say number six on the good side of things. Recently released talent Shotzi Blackheart. She had a short stint in TNA. In fact, TNA was working with a women's group. I want to say it was Shine or Rise, and they had I think it was Tessa Blanchard versus Mercedes Martinez in the main event. I want to say Shotzi versus Delilah Doom was the big brand card match that they had. Because like Mercedes and Tessa was like an inter promotional thing, and the top bout for the promotion was Shotzi and Tessa, Shotzi and Delilah. Delilah's now over at Women's Wrestling. Um, I think Shotzi has a lot of potential, and I don't think the WWE had the allowances to allow this woman to really embrace herself. Wasn't she known as the ballsy badass at one point, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, ballsy badass. Um,
Her tank
that,
shtick,
yeah,
her
getting
affinity with Halloween, like she's got a look and a vibe that I think would do really well in a promotion that wasn't so gung ho about keeping everything, um, sterile. Like
big titted. Yeah, blonde and big titted. Yeah,
well, not even that, just sterile and bland and devoid of any type of uniqueness. So many of their wrestlers are copy, cut, and paste. She doesn't fit that mold. And I think TNA would do well to have her. Now, that being said, she has a lot to prove because she went into WWE, in my opinion, as a prospect with potential. During her run in
yeah,
WWE, I did not see her have one definitively good to great match. She had some fine matches, some passable TV stuff. And she
yeah.
did work with a lot of talent that I don't think had any in terms of like talent. It was a turn of phrase I was hoping that
Absolutely.
would go across. So like she may look a lot better with a lot better talent around her, but she's got
Yeah,
to prove, to us that she can still be an A tier talent in the ring. She's an A tier talent outside the ring, and we need that in wrestling. We,
yeah,
we need those personalities, but can she be as good in the ring as she is outside? That's something that I think she needs to prove.
yeah. You 100% right on that. It's funny because I always saw her. She always stood out differently. It's interesting because she's on a certain spectrum. She's on the side that doesn't seem to necessarily connect fully. The opposite side that does is like somebody like Rhea.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in terms of just people who obviously stand out, had it up. Very much goes to the beat of their own drum. Is so far off the beaten path from traditional. Somebody like Ruby Ride also was in that category. But yeah, I mean, to me, it was cool to see. Like you said, never really stood out certainly match wise. And the tank thing was kind of just always kind of corny to me. I know that was a stick, but that was just kind of corny to me. Never really connected. But then they had her host Halloween Havoc in NXT, and for whatever final reason, she just came alive for me. Um, she was like a scary looking, gorgeous at the same time. Very much had like the felt like the spirit of Elvira type of deal. Um, like you said, but to your point, that's outside the ring. Inside the ring, she's adequate. She works a lot of ways, kind of better in hardcore situations. But again, to your point, I think she fully has to get somebody that can bring out that side of her. Maybe, like you said, go to TNA and have a moment, not at all too dissimilar like Taryn Terrell did with Gail, but she needs a Gail to that degree. So, but I do definitely think she got potential, and she certainly uh, doesn't need to change her aesthetic. We just got to get some different scenarios. She definitely could do some really cool stuff with Rosemary. Wow. but that'll provide some entertaining segments for sure.
I think so. Let's jump to the number five list of items. Number five guy that we are done seeing. We've hit the point of diminishing returns with this individual, and that is none other than Ric Flair. Hell, you can throw his daughter in it for all I care. She's only been around wrestling for like a decade, and she's already worn out her welcome. God bless the Flairs. Somebody should at least. Rick has proven time and time again that he goes into business for himself. He's selfish. He's short sighted. There are rumors, and I will stress that they are only rumors, that he is drinking so much that he's become a bit of a local area legend. Apparently, according to a post on Reddit, Ric Flair will come into a bar, get so sloshed he'll shit himself. I don't know if that's true, but that's the rumor on Reddit. I don't think Ric Flair has any redeeming qualities left as an on-screen character. And honestly, his involvement with the whole Sting retirement was so unnecessary that it kind of, seems like that moment in time we all forgot about. Like he was supposed to be a big part of that whole shtick. I think his last great moment was almost dying in the ring in his retirement bout a couple years back with his now ex son-in-law. The dude's life is a fucking joke and a calamity of epic proportions. And I think if you're gonna have Ric Flair on your show, you're just throwing money away because he doesn't add anything of value. Marcus, thoughts?
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the only person that's looking at Hulk Hogan and going, "Hold my beer," uh, because I'm drinking something stronger is Ric Flair. But like it's crazy. Like everything you said and then some. He is like a walking, talking, um, like never-ending episode of Dark Side of the Ring,
Yeah.
and we just I feel like we're just collectively waiting for the final curtain call. Which feels like, should have been years ago with everything, the man's gone through and put himself, most of which he put himself through. But yeah, man, it's really tragic because for as great of a wrestling career as he's had is equally a tragic personal
Mm-hmm.
uh life. And like I said, so much of it is brought on by itself. Obviously, we all experience tragedy one way or another. Obviously, you lost a kid, and that was that's something he obviously deals with every day. But so much of the other stuff we see is just him being him, needing to be that that Ric Flair gimmick at all times. So it's not done him any favors. It's really in a lot of ways not done his daughter any favors. A lot of times I think we see her try to distance herself from really from a public PR perspective. Obviously, that will always be a dad, but it's yeah, like I said, it's tragic and it's sad because he really is heralded as one of those Mount Rushmore guys. But every chance he gets, he just tips away at his own narrative. So yeah,
Yeah, he's a shell of what he used to be. So is his legacy. The John Jones of pro wrestling, I guess. This
wow,
this is a bit of a dark horse, but I agree with you. There's a lot of potential there. Fabian Aichner. He had a different name as well.
yeah,
I forget what it is. He was the third member of Imperium. He got sent over to SmackDown, and they did the whole Vidi Vici. And
yeah.
honestly, I don't know if there's anything there as far as a big time star. But I am curious to see what he can do as an in ring talent with a better crop of guys around him. I think he could be a real good hand. I think his ceiling, and this isn't a compliment. I know a lot of people like him. This is not a compliment. I think his ceiling is Steve Macklin. I think you
Yeah.
might be able to get him to a mid card heel route. He's definitely got the look. He looks like he actually looks like Homelander from the comics, but bald. And you can do a lot with that. Now, I don't know if he's going to, I don't know if he's got another gear that we've never seen before. Who's to say? Part of the whole thing about going to a company like TNA is that you get to find if you have that next gear. And we've seen guys time and
Yeah.
time again, like Sammy Callahan, go in there, revitalize, not just revitalize themselves, but become a genuine star. Could he do the same thing? It's possible. There's a young
Yeah.
Italian man with a New Japan roster that I think if Aichner were to team up with or to be involved with in any way, might elevate himself, alongside that guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think there's promise for Eichner as a mid card heel act, which is a lot more than I can say about a lot of the guys that WWE let go over the last 12, 18 months. I would rather sign Eichner off of his potential than I would Braun Strowman, mostly because I know with Eichner, he's 34 and has a genuine healthy body, unlike Braun Strowman, whose knees are shot to shit. Now you like Eichner,
Yeah. I
yeah?
mean, yeah, I like the the potential that's there because obviously when he was in Pyramid, he came off more like a very chisel brawler, and then for whatever final reason, and I was this under Vince or Triple H? I don't know. At this point, they both running together. Um, he got, and this is not me comparing him to this particular individual, certainly not from a charismatic perspective. Um, Not that we've been allowed to necessarily see the potential side of them with that, but they gave him the Max Dupree treatment
Mm-hmm.
that they did with LA Knight, and it just it never got out the gate. Even when they tried to do a debut, it was just I mean the definition of dead in the water. And he's a good looking guy. Feel like you put him in the right position, you go. And I think more so than perhaps anybody else, certainly with the dudes on this list, he has like just almost enough of a blank slate to really kind of recapture some of that old TNA. Like this guy went from zero to hero type of deal. Because honestly, to your point, comparing him to Braun Strowman, he hasn't had been allowed to do enough to even be washed, unlike Braun. So it's that's the true benefit somebody like Eichner, because honestly, you go another one of those guys that if he was to get in TNA and have a hell of a run, he'd probably be deemed more, end up being deemed more of a TNA original damn near than a WWE reject. Obviously, that narrative is always going to exist because the IWC is damn near a clown show most times. But yeah, I think he's about as close to a blank slate as you gonna get.
I agree. I do agree with that. Uh, if he succeeds in TNA, it would be almost like EC3. I think a lot more people would see him as a TNA original than they would a WWE reject, even though he was in the WWE for 4 or 5 years before the TNA got their hands on him. So like I think I would agree with you on that. Number three on the can we please not list the Bella Twins? Or is it number four? I think we're on number four. It's number four. The Bella Twins they're coming in as a duo, Nikki and Brie. I don't see the here's the thing. The conversation of Nikki Bella being a trailblazer, full of shit. Absolutely not. She didn't change anything. Somebody on Twitter did defend the idea that she did, and their argument holds a little water. Basically, he said that I believe she did change wrestling because she was so terrible, fans had enough and demanded a change. And I was like, okay, I get that point of view. But as far as a talent goes, again, she has none. Her sister had a little bit. Brie was a little bit more athletic, and she was a little bit more of a daredevil. which helped hide her own inadequacies in the ring. And like the thing is, like, yeah,
Yeah.
they both have inadequacies in the ring. They're both terrible. Whatever athletic form they claim to have was a bald faced lie. But Brie was a bit more reckless, so she had a little bit more of a wanton desire to be seen. You know, like her daredevilness, if you will, made her a little bit more attractive as an in-ring performer than her sister. But neither are good. You can easily find two women who are better than them that can do just quite a lot in the ring. As far as their impact on the sport or on the industry or on the company, I don't think it's so deep that we have to like bring her back because, quite frankly, who wants to see this? It wasn't like it was Trish Stratus or anything like that. Her entire era was propped up by John Laurinaitis sleeping with her mother. This isn't a
Yeah.
real
And
star. Like these aren't real stars. These are people that the executives and higher ups liked and put them on a reality show. And the reality show was semi-famous because people on E watched the show, and then pro wrestling fans watched the show. So it gave it this idea that it was a hugely popular, hugely successful show that redefined the industry. But people need to remember, we watched Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan reality shows. That doesn't mean that they could still draw in the years that those shows came out. The Bellas are done, and that's okay.
yeah, I mean, honestly, that's the credibility I give them with that show, or however much they were involved with the creation of that show, and whatever involvement they had with getting that up and going, and the idea for it, what have you. We're kind of bridging that gap between people who weren't just completely out of the bubble of oblivious to wrestling or not interested in there, bringing them to the product by way of just being in people's personal business through a reality show, because people are usually unfortunately addicted to those things. That's about where I draw it, and obviously to your point, giving credit to Bree for seemingly being more uh, athletic than a sister. Like one soul being athletic, one actually was, um, which is which is funny. But even giving Bree credit for that, I almost got to take it all away from her because she may single handedly have the worst theme song in wrestling. Um, it is cringe personified. Yeah, it is ass to the highest degree. So yeah, but that trailblazing thing. Look, again, that's another soul narrative that a lot of the diehard fans buy, and if you want to give it to them, that's fine. Um, but that whole reality era stuff is kind of over with. I mean, but there is no corner, unfortunately, of these people's lives that we aren't aware of. Where social media, so, they're kind of in a bygone era at this point, and you can't really compare them to Trish because Trish, has come back and and really been able to redefine and refresh a lot of her classic moments and make them work for what she needed to do today. And crazily enough, she may look better today than she did back then, and that's insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no comparison. I don't want to absolutely throw them away in the garbage, but if I did, I wouldn't have to. It wouldn't be a 3 pointer. You know what I'm saying? So
They're a layup for sure. Speaking of layups, we're going to go to the other side of the aisle and talk about the talent that we want to see more of in TNA, nonetheless, and that's the team of Katana Carter. No, Katana. What are their names?
chance.
Katana Chance and Jade
Yeah,
Carter.
Katana chance and Cage. Yeah.
So yeah, uh, yeah, them. Former NXT Women's Tag Team Champion, Caden Carter and Katana Chance. One, Katana Chance is a low key dope name. Kaden Carter is pushing 40, but she looks fantastic and still has a bit of life left in her knees, considering she only got into the industry, what, it was 28? So it's not like she's been getting her ass kicked since she was 16. Like, if she was from Great Britain or Mexico, you see that she's been wrestling for 30, she's 37. There's a good chance she's been wrestling for, 30 years or 25 years because, they're just a little bit nuts over there. Um, so there's potential in these two, jumping over to TNA, especially Casey Catanzaro, the former Miss Ricochet. Katana Chance, super athletic. She's 35, so she's not exactly a spry young chicken either. But like her tag team partner, she only has been doing this for a handful of years. She started in 2018. So, she started at 28 as well. They still had a lot of potential and a lot to develop and showcase themselves. Their move to the main roster was hastily done, and I don't think they were nearly a finished product yet, despite their age. I still think they had time to develop into better, overall talents. I would be curious to see what they could do in TNA. Now, they don't have the charisma as the inspiration. I don't think any tag team in the women's division in wrestling has their charisma. They are loaded with it. But I think they could be some of the better wrestlers in TNA. Now, TNA has a pretty deep roster right now in terms of names. I shouldn't say names because that implies something else. They got a lot of women's wrestlers, though. The problem is that a lot of them either are unknown, a little bit older, or lacking charisma. I think, I would say a good two-fifths of their roster could probably use some seasoning. Unfortunately, TNA doesn't really have a developmental system to call their own, so you have what you have. I think Katana and Caden Carter could really be a nice asset for them in the women's division, especially in the tag team scene, because they don't have a lot of tag teams right now. They're building some, they're
Yeah,
developing some, but they still need some more. And I think these guys would be a nice bridge to the next generation, kind of like Russell Wilson with the New York Giants.
yeah, man, 100% agree. I always dug. I came to dig both of these young ladies individually. Um, Town is crazy athletic, and Kaden got a lot of funk and spark to her. She's another one that has, one of those unique looks that makes her kind of stand out. Like to say, both of them pretty. Kaden, you said gorgeous. I think they could be okay on their own, but they're another one of those parents that they just magic together. And I think and I hope they're aware of that, and I hope they try to stay together because I think they could be far more formidable and kind of musty and bankable as a tag team. And like you said, that's what TNA's lacking. Say they have women's tag team titles, and considering the fact that they brought those titles back, the last thing you want to do is let that division get too dull to where it's a complete another afterthought. So especially since they just added a new single, hadn't been too long added a new single title. So um, yeah, definitely a lot of potential with them, and certainly a lot of avenue in TNA to get more of that personality out on the mic because they didn't really have any mic time when certainly not when they came to the main roster anyway. So yeah, they definitely definitely people I would love to see come to the TNA brand.
Next up, three names, top three names that we think have hit their diminishing returns. Chris Jericho. I think there's a caveat with Jericho. I think Jericho no longer works in AEW. I think Jericho no longer works in WWE. But if Jericho were to pop up in TNA, I think there would be some interest to see how that would go. Mostly because it would be a new audience, new roster, new opportunities, and he wouldn't have the same expectations to deliver at the same levels that he did in 2019 when he had first joined AEW. But I do think that as far as it goes in AEW or WWE, I feel like most people are just just dunzo with Jericho, and for good reason. He's in his mid 50s. He's said a lot of things and done a lot of things that have made him kind of unlikable. And you know, I go back to the Aaron Eckhart line from The Dark Knight. You know, you either live long enough to become a villain or you die a hero. And unfortunately, Jericho didn't retire when he was on top, and now he's become that de facto villain. So yeah, I agree with this addition to the list, Marcus, on names that we don't want to see anymore. What are your thoughts on Jericho?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. Your boy was Paul Hauser
Paul Walter Hauser, yeah.
from Cobra Kai. Paul Hauser gave a solid reasoning for him putting Jericho. I guess you know everybody got their own personal Mount Rushmore just for all the territories Jericho's covered, the ability to stay relevant in all those territories, you know, have some of the biggest moments in those territories and be able to constantly reinvent himself over the years and make himself constantly stand out. But I think it just kind of reminds me of, as you were talking about it, like when somebody was talking about like the tragedy that befell the Flash once it had ended, like it just ran too long. And I think to your point about you know Jericho, that's kind of what we seen in his last bit when he was actively on AEW TV. He's just running too long. There's nothing really more for him to do. You know, that was like his third attempt at doing a stable. It got worse every time. Um, it peaked at the first one, the Jericho, what there was Jericho Club or something, or whatever it was. That's when it peaked, and then it got worse every time after that. His aesthetic is hit or miss depending on the mood he's in. Of course, he's older, so that's the thing. And ultimately, like you said, to your point, between stuff that he's done or said over the years, that's not helped his image at all either. So, you know, I think he's a brilliant wrestling mind. I think he's always shown an aptitude for being able to get stuff outside of wrestling, particularly those years when he had, I think, departed from WWE. So he's certainly not a guy that need constantly be in or around it. But I think if he does come back, I think he's better served being somebody that like aids talent in the back as opposed to being on screen because it's just he's done everything. You know, he's a legend in that regard, but I think what he is today just it doesn't do what it did, and for the fact that he's almost better served in AEW because of the freedom it allows, but he would almost be more tolerable if he went back to WWE doing those sticks, if I should say, if for no other reason than the nostalgia portion of it. Because anything he's doing in AEW with anything tied to nostalgia, it's dead. It's dead. A little bit of the bubbly, all that stuff, great when it happens, but he can't go back to it. You can honestly probably go back to WWE and go back to something stick and it actually work out better. But again, it'll just be him returning the old hat, and he's always benefited from doing new stuff. So I think it's times are kind of up on the Y2J train.
I agree. Moving on to number three on the good side of the list, the people we think can be rehabbed by TNA: Gigi Dolan, Darby Allin's ex-wife, and Zach Wince's current girlfriend, current wife, current girlfriend, fiance, something.
Oh
She
wow,
could be the first female Rascal, and I think that would be dope as shit,
that's great.
right? Like that would be a awesome. They're engaged. They actually might be married now. They got engaged in 2023. Um, that would be a great addition to the stable. It was just announced today that the Rascals, the Zigglers, or the Nemesis, I should say, the Hardys, and shoot, who's the fourth team? And a fourth team who I can't remember are going to be in a four-way ladder match at Slammiversary. And I think Gigi Dolan would be a great addition to the Rascals, assuming they don't split them up going forward. He's like, you never know. They could end up having a feud with one another, but the former um, Priscilla Kelly made some waves, 5, 6 years ago when she pulled a tampon out, a used tampon, and shoved it in someone's face. It did not garner her the reaction she was expecting, and a lot of people were pretty disgusted with it, even though it was, a prop. Still, it's one of those things where I think she could tone it down a little bit from where she was on the Indies, but crank it up significantly from where she was in the WWE. I think her and Shotzi could be a lot of fun together as a tag team, and I think the Rascals would do very well with Gigi Dolan on their team. Thoughts, Marcus?
Yeah, I would disagree with everything you said. I think she's another one in terms of maybe perhaps with the women in terms of being a potential blank slate if you kind of omit the tamponness of it all. Um, because she was what an toxic attraction when she was in NXT, and once Mandy left, that they two of them just really didn't have no chance. I think it was her and what JC Jane.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically enough, Jane's now the NXT Women's Champion, so she managed to find her the water and be able to swim in it, but Gigi just never got her legs up under her on her own, and yeah. So because I also think there's a lot of potential there. Obviously, she has a personality about herself. Definitely is another one of those names on this list that has a look. And to your point, I think she could have some real cool interactions with, like you said, like the Shotzi's, the Rosemary, um, Masha as well. Masha is another oddity. She's, this particular um, roster of women are not sure. Um, I should say if they did another knockout calendar, it would, it'd definitely be unique.
Yeah.
Say that. Um, but yeah, it'd definitely be unique. But yeah, a lot of potential with her, and she get the short. If for no other reason, like you said, getting to be a female rascal, those would be some interesting segments, and potentially having her as maybe a linchpin, her bringing them back together if there was a storyline where they tried to break up. That would be cool.
Let's move on to number two of the guys we could see less of. We're going to TNA and we're going to go with Eric Young. I think personally, Eric Young has been on this list since like 2016. From his initial debut with the WWE until now, I think he's been must miss television. He's not a great
Mm.
wrestler. He's fine. He's fine. But he's not a great wrestler. He's not a great promo. Everything they've tried to do, it feels like they gave to him almost as if they were trying to say, thanks for doing, the hard stuff. Here's a run. His two runs with the TNA World Title were boring. His antics in NXT and then the main roster on WWE and then back to TNA after he got released the first time, uninteresting. He went back to the WWE and never got used and then was released again. I feel like people really want Eric Young to be a star, even though he doesn't have star potential or star talent. He's a good C plus mid card, lower mid card type of guy, right? He's someone that you can have to be funny, to be interesting, that can bridge a gap, but I don't know why anyone would ever put him in the headlining spot thinking that he's going to draw ratings, that he's going to move tickets. He is a C plus guy at his apex. He's no longer at his apex. The best thing for him would be as kind of a tag team right now, where he's basically acting as the gatekeeper to talents that are trying to get over. He shouldn't be leading Sinners and Saints. He should be eating pins to Sinners and Saints. But opinion. Marcus, thoughts?
100% agree, man. And I think my favorite man. I mean, he's certainly a name that you have to acknowledge and give credit to throughout the long history of TNA. But these last few years, like you said, man, from 2016, it has been a law of diminishing returns. Obviously, he's loyal. He's showed a very strong commitment to the company, and I would imagine it's played a lot of roles that maybe we hadn't even seen at the time to keep things moving. But depends on their talent. Like you said, he looks like we talked about this. He looks like if they brought like another season back of Sons of Anarchy for like an add-on season, like he'd be a villain.
Yeah, but like a
Or
four
something.
episode arc villain, not even like a full season.
Yeah, yeah, like a 4 episode arc villain. And it's like it's crazy because like the last time like he was really to me, like you said, he was a C+ player at his apex. But that time when they find that like they actually put the world title on him, he had the fro with without the fro, just the wild hair with the like the I can put a bird, a whole family of birds in my beard type thing. And he had like 2 or 3 shows on the same network while he was champion. That was very interesting to see. Um and you got to give him not the nod, if for no other reason, the fact that he ended one of the worst title reigns in company history, maybe in wrestling, of Magnus at the time. So
And
yeah,
and
but
and
those fond memories.
that title reign should not
Go
have
ahead.
been as bad as it was. That title reign should have been a lot better.
Yeah,
TNA didn't have a fucking clue what they
yeah,
were
it
doing.
was. Yeah, but it's fun as times. His Super EY stuff was great. Obviously, Team Canada, and then stuff with ODB is can't overlook that. That was like his Santino Beth Phoenix type of stuff. ODB is another one who probably doesn't get as much credit as she deserves, but they were a great pair. Who could forget that wedding? Yeah, EY's played some real pivotal, key, and entertaining moments, but it has not been in these last few years. I think he's actually better than her probably backstage, maybe producing or helping these younger talents getting spots that we're talking about, as opposed to him constantly being in situations. If he's going to be in a ring, to your point, take the pins. Don't try to start another Violent by Design, which probably went longer than it needed to go. We don't need it. And keep him away from the world title. That doesn't need to be a thing anymore.
Agreed. Number two guys that we think TNA could really rehab the image of. We're going with Eddie Thorpe, aka Carl Fredericks. I remember when they were releasing those documentaries on New Japan World with like all the young American talents. Shibata was the coach. Clark Connors, Alex Coughlin, Carl Fredericks. I really thought those three dudes were about to be stars in this industry. Now, Clark Connors is still on his way. Carl Fredericks jumped to WWE, and sadly enough, Alex Coughlin had to retire young, although I'm always hoping he comes back. We'll see, though. I think Fredericks had the best look of them all. And I think there's always room for a character like his in wrestling. And I think he would do real well in TNA, just being able to flex himself because like WWE fans never really got to see him. They never really got to feel like who this kid was going to be. His run in New Japan was fantastic. He won the 2019 Young Lions Cup. He was setting himself up to be a major player for New Japan, especially in the American side of things. So I think in time, like Carl Fredericks could be a headliner for you. And I would like to see that happen. I am very high on this kid, and I think when it's all said and done, we'll be talking about him being one of the first American First Nations tribal Americans to be a world champion in this industry because I think he's that good. I think he's going to be fantastic. And I can't believe the WWE fumbled him as hard as they did, especially when you had someone like Tatanka who come in and give him a little bit of that legendary rub to him the way others have come in and done so with guys in this generation past. So I'd like to see it happen in TNA. I'd like to see Carl Fredericks pop in here and do some work for the company. Now, you're not the highest guy on Carl Fredericks. What do you think is hindering him in your eyes?
Yeah, a lot of this I'm gonna lean on your wisdom of knowing and seeing a lot of them before me because all I've ever seen of him was the NXT stuff, and while he has a look and a size about him, and I think that his Native American roots for another unique thing. Um, we haven't necessarily seen a whole lot of. So I think that puts him in a unique position as well. Like I say, got some size on him, so he's good. But to me, for me in NXT, he just really was annoying as a character because he was just always trying to be seen and interjecting himself and overstepping his boundaries and stuff. Um, but even in all that annoyance, when he did get in the ring, I did see an aggression. I did see a certain look about him that put in the right position and channeled better with a better character. I think he could be a key player. He kind of reminds me in the realm of Dijak.
I could
So
see that.
I do think to your point that yeah he could do something significant if given a chance and put in the right situation.
Speaking of the right situations, let's get to our number ones. This is gonna get sad. Unanimous. We both decided, unanimously speaking. There we go. I said the word. Goldberg was number one. If you know me, if you've listened to any show, I love Bill Goldberg to a near unhealthy amount. I have his autograph on a photo. I got his book. He's my favorite to play on whenever I have a game with him in it. I still sit here and almost weepingly think about how poorly used he was in the year 2000. I got back into the WWE in 2003 because of Bill Goldberg's return to the company. I was just watching TNA and Ring of Honor at the time. So like, and you know, difficultly because it was not easy to watch NWA, TNA, and Ring of Honor in 2003. I'll tell you that much. But like Goldberg was, from '97 to 2004, it was Sting and then Bill Goldberg in my life in terms of my favorite wrestlers. I love this man. When he came back in was 2016 and beat Brock Lesnar in 30 seconds, that was the highlight of the year for me as a wrestling fan. When he beat Kevin Owens and then Bray Wyatt, I was very happy about it. I was like, "Yes, sir, please do more of this." I saw him walk out against Gunther, against Walter the other night, and his knees are so shot to shit. Now, he is legitimately dealing with a knee injury right now. Maybe he won't look so bad come his final match at Saturday night's main event. Right? That's a possibility that exists, man. It really is. That said, I I, I don't have a lot of hope for this. Like I liked the stuff with Ziggler. I liked the stuff with Bobby. I liked the stuff with Brock. His Taker match was god awful, but he has done enough things. I think in wrestling that had his knees been a little bit better, maybe he could have had a decent 5 minutes match with Gunther. Right? I don't have a lot of hope for that. The crowd still pops for him, but I know it's not going to be the kind of match that we all want it to be. Marcus, thoughts on Bill Goldberg hitting the number one of guys that we think has hit the diminishing returns of it?
I mean, if 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 you don't agree that the Goldberg more than anybody else is kind of really set a standard for the law of diminishing returns, you're either deaf, dumb, blind, or all three. Um, and this is coming from somebody who didn't even know. Like I knew how big of a fan he was, but I didn't know about the autograph. I didn't know about uh, all the other stuff as well. So I mean, but again, you've always been consistent. Not too long ago, I felt like I remember you having the idea to put the world title on. I think was it in TNA when they was talking about places he would go or could go.
Who,
So
Goldberg?
and that, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think it was like last year at some point. He goes, maybe I'll do
yeah,
my, because there was talks.
yeah,
I should say there's rumors that he would consider doing a retirement match or two in AEW. And I was like, just fucking put the belt on him in TNA. I don't give a shit. And I'm gonna be honest, Marcus. I still don't
yeah.
give a
That's
shit.
it.
It'd be an improvement over the last few fuckers who've held that belt.
Dude. but yeah. I mean, certainly the current champion. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you've always been consistent. It's crazy throughout his entire back half. Like I really got into Goldberg because I his WCW stuff just went over my head because I just didn't watch any of it. But that 2003 run is still fun to go back and watch because I'm thinking we sitting here talking about like if we could somehow do some type of magic and put that Goldberg now, that's a different story. Like still to this day, one of my favorite things to watch is him being Christian with the damn chair and holding the chair.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because all the spears back then, the spears 3 minute warning, all that other stuff. Like, and apparently he had like he really didn't like his time doing that run, but it was great to watch. But like that's why I like watching night and day now. Like since he's been back all these times over all the course of these years, you've really had to spot the moments where he's looked good, where the entrance came off well, where he hasn't blown himself up, if not outright concussed himself before a match or before a segment. Um, and it's been a real just hit or miss. So like you said, I think he peaked with that Brock 30-minute kaiju, 30-second I should say kaiju affair, and it's just been way too hit or miss since then. Um, the only other crazy thing I see that's incredible is like seeing Gabe go from that little chubby kid that couldn't get across the guardrail to being, I think he's bigger than his dad now in terms of height. So, uh, yeah, but other than that, it's just at this point, I just don't want to see him get hurt crazily because that match with Undertaker, we almost like watched the homicide unintentionally. But yeah, so I think it's gonna be bad. I would like them to not put the child on to go over Gunther. I think Gunther is in his bag right now, hitting the stride, specifically finally beating Jey Uso and getting over that. But so I don't know what they're gonna do with this. I would just prefer them to figure out a way to work this match the way he comes off looking credible enough to where it's not like, you know, please never put this man on our TV again because he does at least do what he does, at least in some form of fashion for the kids, which I can appreciate. But I just would hate for his last match to be like, if we had put an actual kid out the audience in there, they would have put on a better match than he did. So
Before we get to number one, I just saw this tweet. I wanted to read it to you. Apparently, Robert Downey Jr. celebrated the premiere of Ironheart by calling Dominique Thorne, who stars in the show, and the quote tweet said, "Black folks encouraging black folks." If you don't remember,
if
Robert
you
Downey
know,
Jr. was in
if
blackface for Tropic Thunder.
if you know, you know the one time appropriation worked, say
Yeah.
that character. That's like to me, that's like the one universal thing that when people bring that up, they're like, you know what? You're right. It was thick. It worked. It just I don't know what all brought that together, but yeah, that Tropic Thunder movie was like just an anomaly that we haven't seen since.
It was pretty fantastic. All right, number one. Um, For me, I generally think this individual is not just a top tier talent, but I think when we talk about the ability to build a promotion around them, or the ability to, um, you know, uh, build a division around them. I think the best wrestler that's been released from the WWE who could really find a second life in TNA is B Priestley, truly and fully. I think Blair Davenport, B Priestley, however you want to address her as, is a S tier talent in the ring. There are a few women who are on her level, and I think in terms of her look, she has such a dynamic, cold, steely ambiance to her that I think if you brought her in, you don't bring her in to put over Masha, you put her in to beat Masha. I think Masha has been a underwhelming champion. Some of it's the NXT talent she's had to work with. Some of it's the fact that she's just not as good as advertised. Jordan Grace is a generational talent, and that's never been more on display than seeing Masha struggle to fill her shoes. B Priestley is generational talent. I think B Priestley can come in, become the next stud of the knockouts division, elevate the company, elevate the division, elevate the belt, elevate the product. I think she's a must for this company. Marcus, how do you see B Priestley?
I can't disagree. I'm leaning on your wisdom again for this one because sadly enough, the only um action I've had with it, as a fan, has been her time in WWE, particularly on in NXT in the main roster. I think she was in Nevada NXT UK, and that was a different thing. But I didn't catch enough of that consistency for her to consistent enough for her to stand out to me. So when I finally saw her, she just kind of had the Cruella de Vil type of obviously with the blonde and the black going on, and I have a look about her, but in the ring, it just nothing clicked, and the character didn't click for me, and um, he was just like the very definition of unimpressive. But to your point, um, I think it says a lot about just how WWE can take a true star and turn them into a complete scrub because it's not too many people that you have put over on all the years that we've been doing this show. It's not a long list of people you put over the way you just put over Rhea Priestman. So to me, that says a lot about who she is and what she's capable of, and the way that that clearly got dimmed almost into the ground in WWE is so sad. It's almost impressive. If it wasn't, it would be impressive. If it wasn't so sad. But yeah. Again, it's another great woman added to the potentially added to the roster, and if she could be somebody that show that level of improvement and kind of dethrone somebody like Martha, who God bless her, but like you said, Jordan is just a different gear, and she met her, but meeting somebody in the ring and being able to kind of do what they do and fill their shoes, not too dissimilar in the way of being a quality champion with non like low quality talent to kind of meet you with. It's there's a lot of potential there, and I'm not gonna you know throw away because, like I said, I only got to see. It's like when people say those reality shows, like we only get to see 5 minutes of their life or whatever. I feel like that's what her time in WWE was. So hopefully she gets to fully rehab that and have a whole new existence and career uh, on this run. Well, I mean, honestly, we talking about people on TNA, but I feel like somebody like Bria could really pop up anywhere and hopefully go improve. But obviously, me and Chad are biased, and we want them cut across the line and really just reinvent themselves.
I think they're going to hopefully land her. I know she wants to go back to Japan, but hopefully she stops by TNA and flexes some muscles there. We'll see. I think she's a stud of a talent, and I'm excited to see what she does next because she is going to really blow some people away. She's hitting the peak of her athletic prime. She's had enough time in Mexico, Japan, the United States, the UK, WB's developmental system that she can bring together a lot of different styles. It's going to be impressive to see what she can do. But that's it for us tonight. I don't think there's anything left for us to address. We'll see you guys next week. I don't know what our topic's going to be. Marcus and I will talk about this probably tomorrow, but we'll be doing it on Tuesday. Any final thoughts on this week's show, Marcus?
Just that I'm proud of us. We kind of came up with this on the fly as we've done several times over the years, but I thought this was really good, particularly coming off of um, some consistent shows talking about TNA and everything that's been going on, both good and bad. And yeah, I think this was a good list, particularly going through potentialities of people who kind of got the bad end of the stick with a lot of these releases. So um, yeah, this was a good show.
We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Marcus can be found on his socials until then at Twitter, Paradox Kid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find him on his other podcast, The True Penny Show, TRUEPENNYSHOW. Check them out on Twitter as well. You can find me on Twitter at Chad Nerdcorp, CHEDNERDCORP, and on the Instagram at Chad's Photo at CHEDSPHOTOHUT. We will also have the website, realnerdcorp.com. We're on Twitch at twitch.tv/Wrestling Underground and youtube.com/Wrestling Underground. See you guys next week. I do believe the Summer of the Beasts is tomorrow night. Matt Riddle versus Kenta. Ultimo Guerrero versus Hammerstone. Yuki Kamafuku taking on Wakana Uehara. Los, I'm not going to say, what is it? Depredadores? Predadores? They're the current tag team champions. I can't pronounce their goddamn names. They're going to be in action. Kushida versus Diego Hill. Shotzi Blackheart will be debuting, and Anthony Green versus Brock Anderson on YouTube.com at MLW. Check that out. I think Kenta and Hammerstone are going to win. We'll see. Until next week, though, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember, as always, to watch more wrestling. Marcus, take us home.
Good night, me.